Today we are going to discuss about the software engineering chapter, one of the most important topic, that is functional requirements versus non-functional requirements. So let us first understand the functional requirement. I will read the definition first. A functional requirement is a description of the service that the software must offer. It describes a software system or its component. A function is nothing but inputs to the software system, its behavior and output. So after reading out this definition, what conclusion that we have drawn out? What have we understood after reading this definition? So a functional requirements is the minimum requirement that should satisfy by your software. So when you will be asked to develop a software by the client expect a list of requirements from the software. Those are the functional requirements. Let's say the client have asked you to develop a library management system. So the client will tell you about the requirements, the business rules which you have to implement. There should be some constant. All these things will be informed by the client to the developer, right? So being a developer, you need to incorporate all these requirements to satisfy the client. So all these requirements must meet. The software must provide all these requirements which the client will ask for. So all these are the functional requirement. Let me explain you in detail that about the library management system. If the client had asked you to develop a library management system, then what the library management system software will do? It will keep record of all the books, the author name and the staff and the students who will take those books, right? And the date when the books are being taken and the date when the book will be returned. All these things will be recorded in a database and the software will manage all those things, right? So it should meet this criteria and this will be informed you by the client. When you will be asked to develop the library management system, the client will tell you all these things formally. So these are the functional requirements. Let me give you a list of example of the functional requirements. So you can see the business rule. Let's say about the library management system, right? There must be some business rule, or you can say the constant which you have to incorporate in the software. If any student or any staff or other candidate return any book after the time, let's say after crossing the due date, then will there be any penalty charges? Then how much charges that should be taken from that candidate? So this is a business rule which you need to incorporate in the library management system, and that will be informed by the client to the developer, right? Now you can see transaction, corrections, adjustments and cancellation. So in any given application there will be a transaction and correction will be required for any transaction, right? So if the transaction or the correction happen, how that is to be done, your option should be given over there by which this can be incorporated. Adjustment and cancellation, all this option has to be exercised in the software and that will be informed to you by the client. Administrative function, so there should be some administrative function. Authentication, right? That proper authentication is required for the software, right? Authorization level, that who is going to access the software? Is it from the administrator side? Is it from the client side? Is it from the normal user side? Proper authentication label should be incorporated in the software. Authentication, that is very important thing, that unauthorized access should be prevented to access the software. Audit tracking, external interface, how the external interface should look like, what are the requirements that has to be incorporated or that has to be designed for the external requirement to solve the purpose of the external part of the software. Certification requirement. So if you develop any software which is related to a exam system where it is required to provide certification, then certification requirements that will be informed you by the client. Reporting requirements, that means software must generate different kinds of reports. So what are the reports, what are the requirements of reports, what are the varieties of reports, that the client will inform the developer that this thing is our requirement. So all these are categorized under the functional requirement. Historical data, that means the data which is not new, the old data, will those data will be saved or those data will be deleted. So depending on the requirement, the software will be developed. So all these requirements will be informed by the client to the developer during the process of software developing, right? So all these are categorized under the functional requirement. Now let us discuss about the non-functional requirements. So first I will read the definition, after that I will explain it to you. The non-functional requirements are the requirements that specifies criteria that can be used to judge the operation of a system rather than specific behavior. So they are constant with functional requirements that define specific behavior or functions. So what have we understood after reading this definition? The non-functional requirements will not be informed by the client side, right? It is not a specific criteria that has to be formally written or that has to be formally informed by the client side. It is a related requirement which will relate to a functions with the functional requirement to specify behavior of a function, right? It will define a specific behavior of function. So let me explain you in detail, right, with an example. So PID, right? You have developed a application, let's say, of a hospital management system. Now assume now the doctor from the application has to find out a report for patients that if there are any allergic behavior of the patient on any given medicine, that has to be checked out from the application. Now let's say the application is not working properly or it is taking enough time. If it takes time, let's say 1 or 2 minutes to give the, or you can say to generate the specific report of the client, so that is quite dangerous. The client may expire during that period. That means you have to make the software efficiently working so that when the requirement arises to see any data or to generate any report, that will comes out within a span of 1 or 2 seconds, not more than that. So you have to ensure speed of the software. So the client will not going to tell you that my software should run at this speed, right? By the time you are developing the software, you have to keep in your mind, being a developer, you have to keep this thing in your mind, right? The user will not going to inform you about the speed. So in case user is using the software, if the user face problem, then the user will come and inform you that you have not developed a proper efficient workable software, right? And you can see the response to the command. That means when you will give a command to the software, how long it is taking to respond, right? If it takes 5 minutes to respond, that means 5 minutes is enough, right? The client will tell you that what kind of software have you developed? I could have done the thing manually with 5 minutes. Then why do I require the software, right? If you can't process my job within a second, then why do I need this software? The client will come and tell you. So the response time of the software is very, very important. I will give you same example as a hospital management system. If you had to get a report of a patient, if it takes time to get a report of a patient, let's say 5 minutes or more, the patient could be in much more dangerous situation, right? So you need to develop the software which will take minimum response time. Now let me explain you about the security. So you have to ensure the security of the software. This falls under the non-functional requirement. The client, while they will ask you to develop the software, the client will not come and tell you that my software need to be secure enough so that outsider will not going to check the important, or you can say very crucial data, right? So that you have to ensure by yourself, right? Being a software developer, you have to ensure security and the portability. What does the portability means? That the software should be portable enough to carry away. If requirement arise, the user will install the software in some other device. So that should be portable. It is not that it will be installed in one system. If requirement arises, the software can never going to be carried in other system. That should not happen, right? The software must be portable. If requirement arise, the software will be installed to any other device, right? Compatibility, right? So you can't develop a software which will only support on desktop, right? The software must support on desktop, laptop, tablet, mobile phone, right? That is compatibility. That it should support in more than one number of devices. So you don't know when requirement will arise. The user might be accessing the same software from other device. So that is compatibility. Capacity of the software. If you have designed a database which have limited capacity, if the capacity is full, then further data will not be inserted in the database, right? That problem should not arise. You have to keep in your mind that there should be endless data in the database. So you have to create a database or the software in such a way that the capacity will never be a hindrance, right? Reliability, that is very, very important, right? Software reliability, environment, that is also important. Localization, right? So these are all the examples of non-functional requirements. The client will never going to tell you about this non-functional requirements, because being a layman user, the client never going to have these ideas. So this is from the developer ends. You have to ensure all these functions. These are categorized under the non-functional requirements, right? So all this you have to keep in your mind before you write the answer for the functional requirement versus non-functional requirement. I hope I have successfully made you understand, right, about the difference between functional requirements and non-functional requirements. So if these questions come in your exam, you can easily get good marks. Thanking you for watching this video till the end. My dear friend, if you like this video, then please you click the like button and share this video with your friends. That will motivate me to create more such videos. And don't forget to subscribe the channel.